Welcome to Sunlit Brushstrokes. Today we have an easy drawing lesson where I'm going to guide you step by step on how to draw beautiful mugs. This is perfect for beginners. You'll be learning techniques that will be helpful for drawing any cylindrical object. And be sure to tune in again for my next video because we're going to be adding some color to these delightful mugs. Let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to start out with a really quick lesson on lines and ellipses because that's what we're going to be using today to form our mugs. So the first thing we want to have is we call it an axis line. So wherever our mug is going to be, we're going to have a line in the middle of it. It's going to just be straight up and down parallel with our page. Then we're going to draw an ellipse at the top. And to draw the ellipse, I'm coming in almost like I'm a helicopter. I kind of almost hover over this first, and I'm using my whole arm to create this motion. And I get this kind of rough ellipse in here that I can then refine more carefully. And my goal is that I'm centering my ellipse so that if you were to divide that ellipse perfectly in half, the axis line would be in the middle, if that makes sense. So it's going to be centered on our axis line. And then I will go ahead and do another ellipse down here. And then I'm going to refine it a bit, go a little slower. If I feel like I'm happy with it, it's centered. You can see like I messed up over there. You can just erase that part. And then you're going to be drawing a line to attach the top and the bottom ellipse together. And this is how you would draw any cylinder or cylindrical object. Let's go ahead and label the parts. So this is our axis line, this center line here, and then we have our two ellipses here. Now the ellipse is just a fancy name for a circle set in perspective. And so if you look at this mug, you're looking top down, and so you're seeing this opening of the mug really as a circle, right? And then as you kind of tip this mug away from you, you'll start to notice that it's becoming more of an oval shape. And the more you tip it, the more of a flattened ellipse you are getting. And so that's what we have just drawn, is an ellipse or the circle of the top of our mug set in perspective. And you can see, if I was to keep tipping it, you'd be able to see the bottom of it as well. The bottom ellipse starting to show up, but you can no longer see the top ellipse. The reason we draw the bottom ellipse when we're doing this, we will go ahead and erase this line here, but it's giving us a nice round bottom for our cup or mug or cylindrical object. And when you go to draw a mug, I actually really like working from life with students where they can actually have a mug right in front of them to draw this. And that's what I would actually recommend you do. I'd recommend you find yourself a mug and just study it for a bit, change the perspective a little bit. Pay attention. If you put this at your eye level line, you'll notice that you can really not see the top ellipse and sometimes even the bottom ellipse. It almost just looks like straight, but very rarely do we actually draw something in that perspective. And that's where if you tip it a little bit, and of course when it's in front of you, it's going to look different than when I'm holding it like this over my paper. I'm just showing you so you can see it in the camera. But a lot of times we like to draw things where we can see a little bit of the inside of the mug. And so that is why we're going to do that today. You're probably asking, why did we need to bother drawing a line in the center of this mug? Or the center of the cylinder? This isn't even a mug yet. There's no handle. But why did we even have to do this line here? Well, when you're doing something really simple like the one we did today, there's a chance you could probably draw this without needing your straight line there as guidance. However, this whole concept is also going to be played out when you're doing more complex cylindrical objects. Take, for instance, a vase or maybe even this teacup. And there are a lot more ellipses at play here when you go to draw it, and especially once you put it on the saucer, there's going to be a number of ellipses, and you want to make sure that those are all lined up properly with each other. And so having this axis line is going to help. The other thing it helps is that sometimes, I would say most of the time when you're going to draw a cylinder, it is standing upright. However, let's just say that you had something kind of lying on its side or maybe tipped on its side. Your axis line will then be sideways or however you want it to be. You're still going to have those ellipses lined up perfectly. You might even want to move your sketchbook around so that you can draw that ellipse so that it's lined up. I'm being a bit sloppy here, sorry folks. Lined up on that axis line and then you can attach them together. Now the top one's a little bit bigger than the bottom one here, which is fine, but you're still going to want to have that happening as you draw your cylindrical shape. If you take an ellipse, you should be able to divide your ellipse into quarters, if you will. So you're going to have your center line and then a line through the middle. Each of these parts, let me straighten my paper up for you. Each of these parts should be symmetrical or kind of identical, more or less, to each other. You don't want your ellipses to start looking like this. You see what I'm doing here? I've got one side a lot narrower than this side. The other thing that you don't want to have is having your ellipse kind of like this shape where it's a little bit boxy. These are both ellipses you want to try and avoid. Instead, you want to just give yourself the freedom to come down, like I say, almost in that helicopter motion. Now, granted, I'm not doing these straight here. I'm just drawing some ellipses. Just come down with that helicopter kind of motion. You're using your whole arm. You're coming down. You're touching down. Whoops, I'm getting a little bit crooked here. And if you just gently go around and around, you'll be able to hopefully achieve an ellipse that looks fairly symmetrical. I would recommend practicing actually a whole page of ellipses in your sketchbook. That was one of the first exercises I did when I was taking an art course as a young person. I thought the exercise was completely boring. I had to do a whole page of ellipses, but it was a really, really good practice. And you know what? It's pretty mindless, but it actually is incredibly good for just building in those I guess it was really the muscle memory, right? And getting used to doing ellipses. So do a page of those if you feel a little bit like the ellipses are a bit of a challenge. It's a really good motion to kind of build into your repertoire, if you will. Now you can see as I was doing that, I kind of had to self-correct or course correct because yes, as I was coming down, I was touching down a little bit awkward, but that's okay. You can always erase those lines that you don't like, right? But you can see there's actually a pretty good ellipse in the middle of that mess, right? And this ellipse is actually a more open ellipse, if you will. So you're looking a little bit more straight on. It's not a full circle, right? It's still an ellipse. So it's still a circle set in perspective, but it's a little more open, whereas this one is a little flatter, which means it's a little bit more on your eye level. If you're looking at something, I'm going to put this kind of eye level to the camera, like I mentioned earlier. It's more like that. Whereas when you're looking down at something, it's more open. So the more above the object you are, the more round that's going to look, and the more to the side the more to the side of your object you are, the more flattened that ellipse will become. So grab yourself a mug and study it for a little while, maybe try drawing it, and you'll get a good idea how those ellipses are working in perspective. Let's put these concepts into practice now with some cute projects. Let's start with our latte mug. So I've drawn my axis line, my top ellipse, now my bottom ellipse, and I'm going to do the bottom ellipse smaller because I'm thinking of this one as being a taller latte cup. Then if you want to, you can even join your ellipses together with your ruler. I could have mentioned that before, but let's just go ahead and do that now. Ooh, I'm slopping a little bit. Sorry, everybody. You can see these ellipses are, even though one is smaller than the other one, they're still kind of in the same amount of perspective in terms of how open they are, if that makes sense. And I'm going to draw a line that's kind of parallel. You could do another whole ellipse that wraps right through the mug, or you can kind of eyeball that you're going to be parallel with this ellipse here and make yourself like a wrapper for this cup. Let's just say that this is a pumpkin spice latte from your favorite coffee shop. So like I say, you could go ahead and do that full ellipse because that wrapper would be wrapping all the way around, and then just erase the back side of the ellipse afterwards. That you can absolutely do, and that's really going to give you a better understanding of what exactly is happening here. But sometimes I'm just kind of like, you know what, I think I kind of can just follow the guidance that this ellipse provides me and do this here. But yeah, probably the better thing is to just give yourself that full ellipse and then erase the back after. But anyways, there we have our drawing for that, and I'm going to go erase things. Okay, let's go ahead and finish drawing some details to this, and then we'll add the color after. Now, if you wanted this latte to have no whipping cream, you would draw an ellipse kind of like this, just inside the mug. I'm going very lightly now, but I'll go a little heavier. I can erase after. I want you guys to see what I'm doing. You could draw an ellipse right inside there, about, I don't know, that's more than 1/4 inch, but it's not full 1/2 inch from the top. And that would be kind of like your line for your coffee or whatever. But we're gonna put whipping cream in there, so I'm going to not worry about having that there. I can erase that after, but I just put that there to show you so you understand what exactly is happening. And then if you were actually wanting to write any words on this label, you could give yourself a guideline for that by doing an ellipse if you wanted to, and then writing on that ellipse. So say you wanted to write pumpkin spice, right? You could write it and use this as your guideline so that your writing kind of swoops along with the way that this is going. However, I'm going to keep it simple, and I think I'm just going to draw a pumpkin on the top, on the front of it, skip the words. So I'm going to draw this pumpkin, and if you want to see me do more pumpkins, I have a video just on pumpkins, and I can include a link to that. So I'm not going to spend a lot of time describing how I'm doing my pumpkin here, other than to say I've done my center little section, and then I'm doing a section on each side and kind of this C shape. And then I will throw my little stem in here. You know what, I think I should have, I kind of did this pumpkin a little high on my latte mug, didn't I? I'm gonna move it down a little bit. Or I could just move my wrapper up, either way, but I'm just gonna move my pumpkin. Let's just move it down a little bit. Maybe make it a touch smaller. I was just running out of space. You can do what works for you. You get to see extra of me doing my pumpkin drawing in case you needed to see me. You can see me slop, which is always helpful, right? I actually like watching other artists have to fix their messes. Good enough. This is just supposed to be a simple project. This is not supposed to be about drawing pumpkins. Okay, so this was my top of my wrapper, and like I say, I'm not going to bother doing the writing, but if I wanted to write pumpkin spice, I could have given myself a line to do that, but I'll just do a cute little swirly on my pumpkin, maybe do a few leaves, just simple, don't do anything complex. Again, you could kind of think about them running along the line of the wrapper as well if you want to. You could easily make little designs along this edge of the wrapper as well, like if you're really wanting to get into that ellipse mode and celebrate the ellipses you've just learned, you could make some more of these lines that kind of follow the elliptical structure of this latte mug. But let's go ahead and just add some whipping cream. I'm going to just lightly erase that line there. And I'm going to use that line actually somewhat as like the base of my whipping cream, but I'm going to make the whipping cream come up. So I'm just going to give myself kind of like a little mountain shape here coming off the center. So it's coming off from where I kind of was going to put my liquid, if you will. But I'm just going to give myself a little mound, and I'm going to put some of these little, there's no rhyme or reason for how I'm doing these little stripy fluff puff whipping cream things, but I'm just kind of making it like so. So I'm going to I'm just basically wrapping it, but making it come upward. So I'm not using anything technical like the ellipse. Really, I'm just making my whipping cream kind of almost twist. If you don't want to add whipping cream to yours, there's really no reason you have to. Now, I'm actually not a huge fan of pumpkin spice lattes myself. I think that they are a cute thing for the fall, and I have family members who really, really like their pumpkin spice lattes. I'm pretty plain Jane. I would prefer a good coffee with cream in it. And I'm a weird person. I like salt in my coffee. Yes, a little tiny bit of salt. You should try it. It really makes the cream taste creamier. But anyways, that's me. All right, let's move on. So let's go ahead and do a coffee mug this time that's a little shorter, a little wider. And we are going to draw our ellipse down the center again. Hopefully I'm fairly straight. And I'm going to do my ellipse again over here. Did I say ellipse for this? Sorry, axis line. Now I'm doing my ellipse. And I'm going to go smaller once again at the lower part of this mug. You can see I'm drawing that in there, but this is where I'm going to add a little twist to the what I just showed you. Oh, just a minute. This is a little bit. It's pretty straight here what I just did. But I'm going to be erasing that. I'm going to erase it right now so I don't distract myself, because sometimes when I join them, I don't want to join them to the part I don't want to, like the part I didn't like, right? Does that make sense? Let's just try and clean that up a little bit on that side. That was a little bit off-centered. Give yourself grace though, because like this takes time. I've done so many mugs and taught this lesson enough times you think I would be perfect at it, but I still slop. And so I would say give yourself plenty of grace. It's gonna look amazing when you're done, even if you don't do it perfectly. Okay, this is where the twist is coming. I'm going to add a little curvature in the way I join them. So just do it nice and slow. Take your time. I'm just kind of, again, almost just kind of lightly pressing, going over it as many times as I need to, and then I get darker as I get more confident, or as I want to change things. You can see I kind of wasn't quite happy with things. I had to pull it out a little bit more wide over there. You can get the point of what's happening though, right? Then you can draw yourself another ellipse here, or just another line that's really parallel to the again, the top of this. So we have our liquid line, or in my case, my coffee line. You can make your hot drink to be whatever you want it to be. It could be hot cocoa, it could be tea. What's your favorite tea? I actually like kind of bitter teas. I really like roasted dandelion root. It reminds me of coffee. But what do you guys like to drink? Okay, so we can erase the front of this because we can't see the coffee line through, unless of course you like a clear coffee mug, in which case there's no reason you couldn't leave that line and have a clear mug. Most of my mugs, I think all of my mugs are opaque. You can't see through them. But anyways, let's do the handle. If you want to make a clear coffee mug, there's no reason you couldn't leave that liquid line there. But I'm making mine opaque, so I'm going to be erasing that. Then I'm going to just draw this. It almost looks like an ear or something, doesn't it? But I'm going to come up here. I'm going to come a bit thinner. So this was thick, thin. So that's almost like a 1/4 inch or so. This is probably an eighth of an inch as I come down. And then I'm going to do the inside of it kind of like this. It's going to taper out kind of about there. And then I'm going to just go like this and make that part skinny. You'll see it'll come to life better when I go to shade it, but good enough for now. Now we're gonna make a saucer to this, and that's where you're gonna be happy that you have an access line, because we're gonna try and sketch in a saucer, and I'm gonna make the bottom about here, probably make the top come about here. I'm just kind of eyeballing and trying to figure out about, if you have a mug with a saucer, look at it as you do this. Working from life is so helpful. I always recommend doing this initially from life if you have the opportunity to. In other words, if you have a mug, it's going to help you figure out where to place things. I might draw a little bit of the underside of this. I'm not sure how much of it we'll actually see with this perspective here, but I might just make a little bit of, kind of like you can see a tiny bit of the underside of the saucer, but some saucers you can, some you can't. It depends on the shape of the saucer as well as the perspective that you are looking at it from. So I'm going to leave that mug like that for now. Or do you want to add something cute on the top? I don't know. I told you I'm a plain Jane, but we could draw a little heart latte thing. I'm going to draw it kind of at the side. So let's just try this. I'm not super good at this, but let's just try and draw a little heart kind of latte shape in here. And then I'll just, this is totally optional. I'm not even sure if it's going to work. Kind of just going to have to watch me here, because this is more just like I'm just kind of taking artistic license as I do this. I've done a little bit with drawing a latte before, but it's not my strong point. So there we do have a little bit of a heart latte. If we want to do it that way, we can. You can keep it simple and just do it straight coffee. When we do our teacup, we're going to do it just plain like tea or tea with cream. And so you could just repeat that in there. That's just throwing a little complexity or fun, however you want to look at that. So let's move on. All right, so for my teacup, I'm going to do the same thing. First my axis line, then a larger ellipse at the top, then a smaller ellipse at the base. And this one, I'm actually going to make it like a pedestal teacup. So I'm going to add another ellipse here. This is going to be the top of the pedestal, kind of where things go in, and then down here. Slop in a bit on that ellipse. That will be where it comes back out. So let's just join these. Now you could have this come in a little bit if you wanted to, like some teacups they end up kind of swooping in which case you may want to have another ellipse here to kind of give you a little bit of guidance in terms of how much to pull it in towards the sides. And that can be really, really pretty. And so if you want to, just leave it straight the way that I've got it like this right now. If you want to add a little touch of challenge, you don't have to do this, but if you want to, you could add a smaller ellipse right around here. I think I got that straight. And then just bring things in. Again, optional, this extra ellipse, but then bring it in and then bring it back out. So it kind of adds that little swoop, but that's optional and it does add more challenge to this project. So, but often teacups do kind of have that little bit of a swoop. So do what you want. You can either just do a straight line, simplest, or if you want to have a little bit more of a challenge, you want that little bit of design, extra design there, you can add that extra ellipse just to give yourself guidance. You might be able to figure that out without the ellipse, but the ellipse just helps you kind of make sure you're a little more centered, assuming you've got your ellipse more or less centered on your axis line. Okay, let's add that little pedestal quick. So from the top of this ellipse to the bottom of this one, there's our little pedestal. And then we want to have a larger ellipse again. You can decide where the back of it, you want the back of it to be versus the front. If you have a teacup and a saucer to look at, that would be helpful, but you can absolutely just kind of follow me, and we're just going to get that ellipse on there, try and loosen things up, just let your arm kind of flow. I do find I struggle with the ellipse kind of more on this side. I don't know if that's something to do with being right-handed or just I've got a little bit of a crooked way of doing things. I don't know, but I find that tends to be where I'm off more often than not. Is over here. So that's okay. Just try and tidy it up a little bit after we get it on there. I'm going to just do a little bit of erasing. Let's do it, just turn it upside down and see how we think this looks. It's another good way to clean up your ellipse if it's a bit lopsided. Okay, and then sometimes with a saucer, you may or may not see the underside of it. It really depends on what perspective you're looking at it with, right? Sometimes you'll see a little bit of a, I don't know, you could say the bottom of the saucer a little bit right there, but not always. So that's optional. Let's just not put that on there because probably looking at it in such a perspective that we don't see it, but sometimes you will. If you've got this closer to your eye level, if you've got it down and you're looking at it down at the table, you probably don't see the underside, but if you've got it closer to your eye level on a shelf, then you probably will be seeing the underside of it. But we're gonna call that good for now. And then let's just do the handle, and the handle is going to just be a matter of, you can just do it exactly the same way that we did the handle for the mug, but if you want to make it a little more ornate, which who doesn't, right? We want to make it a little bit more fancy. Let's do it a little bit more fancy. So let's just do some little extras here. I have a mug in the studio to look at, and or a teacup rather, and it's kind of like it's got this C shape right here. I could say backwards C rather, and it has like this little lobe thing that comes out both here and here, and so it's almost like this little C that's on here. Let's just thicken it up a little bit. And then there's actually a little bit of a, I don't know, it's almost like a little tip that comes up like this. And then down here, it just kind of almost does like the reverse C here. So it kind of does something like this. Again, this is being kind of ornate. You absolutely don't have to do such a fancy little handle on your teacup. I'm going to just actually minimize, let's see, these things actually overlap more than I got them. There we go. They kind of cross over a little bit more. I don't know. What do you guys think? I'm going to erase the spots that kind of divide them, because even though we drew it in sections like that, of course the teacup handle doesn't actually have strong dividing lines there. So I'm just going to erase everything on the inside. It just gives us a little bit of a fancier handle, but like I say, there's really no reason you can't just do this with a little bit more of a regular handle like we did on the mug. Okay, I think that's a little bit better. Now you can go ahead and erase these extra lines if you want. I realized with my teacup I missed my little tea line here. So I'm gonna put tea in there. And let's just make it fun. Let's put a little tea bag coming out of the outside of the teacup. It actually would look better maybe on the other side. What do you think? 'Cause we've got a little bit busier side on this side with the handle. Or let's move it over a little bit. We could have the little tea bag tag about right there. So let's go somewhere like that with it. There we go. And we'll get rid of this little piece here that we don't need. And I might even just kind of make a little bit of an ellipse just under the pedestal area, which is where it can kind of sit in our saucer. Actually, I'm just making that swoop out a little bit more. Let's just turn it sideways. That'll help. Okay, there we go. There we have our teacup. Finally, I'll be using my kneadable eraser and my pen eraser to remove excess pencil lines. But you could definitely use the small eraser on the end of your pencil and it would help you get into the small areas of your drawings. I just want to have everything lightened up so that these drawings are ready for our next lesson, where we're going to be discussing shadows as well as how to add color to our mugs. Until then, I hope this tutorial has brought a little taste of God's beauty and peace into your everyday life, and that it's inspired you to continue enjoying your own creative journey. See you again next time. Bye!